So, you want to get started in photography in 2025, but you're not exactly sure where to begin. Like me, you've probably spent hours upon hours online looking at camera reviews, lens reviews, accessories, and to be honest with you, it's easy to be overwhelmed. Some gear can cost thousands and thousands of pounds, and to be honest with you, it can sometimes feel like you need to take out a loan just to get started. But here is the truth. You can absolutely start your photography career without spending an absolute fortune. Here is where it gets a little bit tricky though. There is so much choice out there. From mirrorless cameras, crop censored cameras, full frame cameras, prime lenses, kit lenses, third-party lenses, refurbished gear, bundles. It is genuinely a minefield. Some of the gear out there is fantastic, and some of it honestly just isn't worth your money, especially if you're trying to keep your costs down. Now this question, hands down, is by far the most common question I get asked as a YouTuber and content creator. If I was starting out in photography and I've only got a small budget, what would I buy? And well, that got me thinking. If I had to go back to the very beginning and start my photography journey all over again, but with everything I've learned with the nearly 10 years of working as a professional photographer, what would I actually spend my money on today? So I've set myself a realistic beginner-friendly budget, £1,000. Now I know £1,000 sounds like a lot, but keep in mind we're not just buying one camera. We're going to have a look at everything you need to start out. So here is a quick shopping list. A camera body, a versatile zoom lens, a wide aperture prime lens, a memory card, a spare battery, and something to carry everything else in. A decent camera bag. Now, this is a setup that will help you start learning, practicing, and really growing your skill the right way. Doesn't matter what type of photography you want to end up doing. Now, to make this as helpful and as fair as possible, I've set myself a few important rules. Now, rule 1 is everything has to be brand new. No secondhand gear, no refurbished models. You should be able to buy everything I mentioned from your local camera shop or trusted online store with a full warranty and peace of mind. Rule 2 is prices are based on average retail costs. So no sales or no discounts. That way the video stays relevant all year round. So you don't have to wait for Black Friday or Amazon Prime Day to hunt down the deals to actually make this setup affordable. And rule 3 is all gear must be current and future-proof. Nothing outdated or likely to be discontinued in the next 6 months. We're all talking about current gear, which means no DSLRs, no bargains that come with hidden compromises. I want to make sure that the gear that you buy actually lasts a long time. So, with those ground rules in place, what kind of photography setup can we actually build in 2025 for just £1,000? And I'm going to start right now. Right, let's kick this video off talking about the very heart of your camera bag, and that is the camera. Now, when buying your very first camera, you want to make sure that you're buying a camera that's incredibly versatile, that you can use for all types of photography. For that reason, I recommend buying a modern mirrorless camera. This will allow you to swap lenses, making it ideal for shooting in all types of environments. You also want to find a camera that's easy to use, compact and lightweight, has good image quality, and most importantly, has a good low light performance. Now, every camera brand offers great entry-level mirrorless cameras, but I think there are 2 major brands that stand out from the rest: Sony and Canon. Both brands have been making mirrorless cameras for a long time, and both brands have a great selection of budget-orientated mirrorless cameras to choose from in 2025. Now, actually, I have extensive use from cameras from both brands, and the brand that I think is best for beginners has to be Canon. I find they're a lot more user-friendly while still offering great image quality and value for money. But out of all of the cameras in Canon's lineup, which one do I recommend? Well, actually, I recommend this. This is the Canon R50, and it is hands down one of the best beginner-friendly mirrorless cameras on the market today. It is compact, lightweight, and most importantly, it uses Canon's RF mount, which is part of their current system, so this mount is fully future-proof. So let's talk about the headline specs. Firstly, it's got a 24.2 megapixel APS-C size sensor with great image quality and solid low light performance with a maximum ISO of 32,000. As well as it can photograph really quickly with a very fast frames per second, shooting 15 frames a second in RAW with the electronic shutter. You go back 10 years, that was a solid spec, not even high-end professional cameras had. And most importantly, it is simple and easy to use. With a very angled touchscreen and a really simple unifying menu, it is a very easy camera to get grips with. But it still has a lot of functionality to it that can grow with your photography experience. It has automatic shooting modes for beginners, but it also gives you full manual control as you grow. It also has really good video specs, making it great for content creation, shooting 4K up to 30 frames a second with no crop, which is amazing for the price point. And talking about price, let's see if it fits in our budget. Well, currently, body only, it is being sold on a few websites for around £590. So this easily fits in our budget. Annoyingly, it does take almost 2/3 of our budget, but we still can get easily 2 lenses, a memory card, a spare battery, and a bag for what's left. So let's move on to the next, a versatile zoom lens. Now, because this camera is APS-C, we can actually use both APS-C and full frame lenses. So there's around 51 to choose from with the Canon RF mount. So which one out of all of these do I recommend buying a zoom lens? Well, actually, I recommend buying this. This is the RFS 18 to 45mm f4.5 to f6.3. Now, this is a great starter kit lens. It definitely isn't the best lens on the market, but it's actually one of the cheapest ones you can buy, especially if you buy it with the R50. Coming in at around £110 if you buy it together, so it does come in as a kit, that is really good value for money, bringing the overall cost for both of these items to around £700. Now again, this definitely isn't the best lens on the market. In fact, it even has a plastic lens mount, and it's got a pretty dark variable aperture. But it does have a really useful, versatile zoom range, from 18mm on an APS-C camera that's wide angle to 45mm, which is more standard wide angle. Okay, so let's add this lens to our list, bringing the total value so far we've spent to £700. Let's move on to lens 2. Now, the next lens we need to buy is a prime lens. If you're wondering what's the difference between a zoom and a prime, well, a zoom lens actually has zooming capability, so you can change its focal length, where a prime lens has a fixed focal length, like 35mm or 50mm. Now, this means it doesn't zoom, but it does give you the big benefit of shooting in a low light environment. Prime lenses usually have a brighter aperture. This is quite a dark aperture of f4.5, so we want something to contrast this lens, and a prime lens is great for it. But which prime lens do we get? As some prime lenses, like the 85mm f1.2, is over £3,000. So which ones should we go for? Well, I think we should go for this. This is the Canon RF 50mm f1.8, and this is one of the best prime lenses you can buy if you are a beginner photographer. In fact, it's so popular, it's usually out of stock with most places I looked at, but there are still a few websites that actually have it in stock. Coming in at around £185, this offers amazing value for money for the image quality. It's really sharp, almost no distortion and vignetting, a small amount of chromatic aberration, but most importantly, it's got a super bright aperture of f1.8, which is so much brighter than our kit lens here, making it great for a low light environment, but also for creating a shallow depth of field. In fact, this is my lens. I actually own this lens still as a professional photographer. I still haven't sold it, so I love a 50mm. Now, it's again, definitely not the best 50mm on the market. Canon actually do a 1.4 and a 1.2, but there's so much money, no way you could afford it with our £1,000 budget, where this lens here only comes in at £185. That is great value for money. So let's add that to our list, bringing up the overall value we've spent so far to £884. And actually, we've already bought a decent amount, a camera and 2 lenses. So now let's move over to the accessories. Now, next up, we need to get ourselves a memory card. And the memory card that's compatible with the R50 is the standard SD, which is great for us. SDs are fairly inexpensive and very common. You'll be able to find them on almost any single website. But which one do I recommend? Well, when it comes to any memory card, including hard drives, I always recommend buying branded and buying reliable. You always want to spend a little bit of money on your SD card because the last thing you want to do is take some amazing photos and videos and end up losing it because of corruption. So which ones do I recommend? Well, actually there's quite a few brands, from Sony, Lexar, but the one I specifically recommend to beginners is SanDisk. And the one that I recommend today is the SanDisk Extreme Pro. This has got a good amount of read-write speed to keep up with the speed of this camera, as well as it's fairly inexpensive. Now, depending on the size that you go for, or depending on how much money you're going to be sending on an SD card, I'd recommend buying anything larger than around 32 gigabytes. The size that I usually go for is 64 gig. On the R50, you should probably get around 2,000 raw photos on it, which is quite a lot, but of course you can always buy larger. But a 64 gig card will set you back around £14 on most websites, which brings up the total value today we've spent so far on £898. But don't forget, you can always buy smaller and larger depending on your budget. Right, now let's move on to a spare battery, and that's really important. The last thing you want to do is run out of battery life on a photo shoot, otherwise your camera basically turns into a very expensive paperweight. Now the battery that the Canon R50 takes is this. This is the Canon LP-E17. And what's great is most entry-level Canon cameras take this battery. The R100, the R50, the R10, even the R8 takes this battery. So if you ever do upgrade your camera in the future, the likelihood you won't have to swap batteries, which is really good and a great future investment. Now this battery comes in retailing for around £45 brand new across several websites. So that brings up the overall cost if you buy one of these to £943. We've still got a little bit of money for a camera bag. Now, when buying a bag, the most important thing you want to look at is size. You want to make sure that everything you own can fit ideally in one bag, from your cameras to all of your lenses to spare batteries, tripods, filters. Everything ideally should fit in one bag. And with all the equipment that we've just brought today, this is the bag that I recommend. This is the Lowepro Tahoe 150, and it's a decent sized bag for the price. It can easily fit all of your expensive camera equipment in there. Plus it's padded, which is really nice, so you know your stuff isn't going to get bashed around when you're carrying it from location to location. Now, when buying bags, there's one thing I always recommend is never buy a branded bag from Canon or Sony, although they don't really do many bags these days. The reason is, the last thing you want to do is get all your stuff stolen because it has Canon written on the side of it. It's the same reason why I don't usually recommend buying a neck strap with the brand of the camera on it. You're just kind of showing off how expensive your camera equipment is, and the last thing you want to do is for it to be stolen. So this Lowepro Tahoe doesn't really look like a camera bag, it just looks like a normal standard black bag, and it does come in a variety of colours. Now the cost of this comes in around £65, which actually I think is quite good value for money. It's premium, it's got this waterproof design, and it's got plenty of zips and lots of space for all of your accessories, bringing up the overall cost to, oh no, we've gone over, £1,008. And there we have it. That is what you can buy for almost £1,000, coming in at £1,008. I still think that's really good value for money. Annoyingly, I just couldn't pass up that bag. I found a few cheaper bags, but they just weren't as good as this one. But for £1,008, you got a camera, you got 2 lenses, you got a memory card, a spare battery, and a camera bag. And of course, write down in the comments below, if you had £1,000 starting out, what would you buy? Would you buy the same, or would you buy something completely different? Make sure, guys, to write it down in the comments below. Thank you to all of my YouTube members that are currently supporting the channel. If you guys want to support the channel and get some awesome perks, including free Lightroom presets like the ones that you can see on screen, make sure to go ahead to the link in the description. I've been James for Photo Fever, and I'll catch you guys next week.